probably the biggest sporting event ever on Canadian soil. The heavyweight championship of the world, and here we have some vids of George training. Ali being vilified south of the border for opposing a war that made no sense. We talked about that. I
Not
got
in
no quarrel with
Canada.
that being con. But he
And not in
certainly liked
Canada.
it here in Canada. He liked
Yeah,
it here
he
in
loved it.
Canada. Let's hear what he had to say. Let's see. I've got a quick clip from Ali talking about his time here in Canada.
But I've never been treated so nice in my life. I haven't had no people making wisecracks. Everybody's friendly. The children, the waitresses, the hotel managers, the policemen. Everybody's as nice as they can be. And it's a lot different from where I come from.
So he talks
Yeah,
about the difference between Canada and the U.S. right there.
George was the first person to refer to him, first well-known, famous person to refer to him as Muhammad after he changed his name.
Yes.
And what I was going to mention was when Mitch mentioned the Chicago Commission, the buzz cut guy who ran it said, Mr. Clay. He said, my name's not Clay, it's Ali. Mr. Clay, Ali. My name is Muhammad Ali. And he said, Mr. Clay. And he said, Angelo Dundee here. His name is Angelo Morena. He legally changed it. I did the same thing, and you won't give me the same respect. I have rights under the Constitution. My name is Muhammad Ali. And finally, the guy called him by his name. And Ali agreed before going in there that he was going to say something, maybe take back what he said. But he said, no, I have a right under the freedom of speech and the Constitution to say what I want to say. And they said, no, you don't. And the thing about Ernie Terrell, of course, was he was managed by the Chicago Mafia. And people in the States and in Toronto newspapers, they said, because he was going to come up and fight Ali here, they said, how on earth did he get in to fight George to begin with when he had a paid killer, Bernie Glickman, in his corner? How did the Canadian authorities miss that? So that's when, I mean, that shows you the corruptibility and criminality of boxing. The boxing Ontario Athletic Commission, everyone knew that he was a mob fighter and that he had killers in his corner, but they still let him in. Finally, some reporters said this shouldn't be happening. George gets the title shot and becomes the first person to ever go to distance with Ali when Ali was in his prime. And also, people always mention, and I spoke to George about this. People mention that, yeah, he didn't get knocked down. That's right, during his career, and he didn't even get so much as staggered. That's true, but there was a reason for that, and that was because George had perfect balance. Perfect balance is rare in any sport, but George had perfect balance. George caught a lot of shots on his hands, as Mitch referred to as meat hooks. George, I would say, probably next to Liston, had the biggest hands in heavyweight history. And, George knew what he was doing in the ring, but he never got credit for that. But for this particular fight, George was treated really well by the Americans, but abysmally by the Toronto press, unfortunately.
George had lost a couple of fights controversial before that. We've spoken about this, Lou, before with Eduardo Corletti. Corletti fight in England, where the referee just goes over and raises a hand very subjectively as to who they didn't want my dad to fight Cooper, so they were trying to discredit him in England.
And Cooper didn't want to fight him.
No, actually, no, he didn't.
No, I spoke to Henry Cooper at the Boxing Hall of Fame. He said, I had no desire to fight George. Who would? No, I didn't want to get my face bashed in.
No, it would have been a rough and tumble fight, that's for sure. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the only people that would benefit from George fighting Cooper would be the Red Cross. That would be it.
You're saying there would have been a little bit of blood spilled along the way? Is that what you're saying? A couple things with the lead up to the Ali fight. Of course, George called him Muhammad for sure. And I think it was an unspoken, but there was that sense of respect that Muhammad really, really respected George for having the courage. If the guy wants to be called Muhammad Ali, we're going to call him Muhammad Ali. My father always said he stood up to a lot of powerful people, and my father had great respect for him in that regard. But then again, my dad was trying to knock him out too, so it's a weird dynamic at play. But he did give him a lot of athletic respect. I think Muhammad always held George in high regard. But if you think about like the lead up to the fight, Muhammad wanting to be a conscientious objector to the war and not wanting to fight what he thought was an unjust war. And you think about what that event, what those events really led to. A few years later, you see Tommy Smith and John Carlos at the Mexico City Olympics after the 200 raising. Those events would not have happened. Those events would not have happened had not Muhammad stood up as a conscientious objector.